The emergency alarm blared through the pristine white corridors of Sunspire Academy. Students in blue and silver uniforms paused mid-step, looking up with confused expressions. This was not a scheduled drill. Director Marcus Reeves stood rigidly in the command center, his weathered face illuminated by the pulsing red light of the distress beacon. The message had arrived just minutes ago from Outpost Epsilon, a small research facility only a few light hours away. The transmission was fragmented, corrupted, but what little they could decipher chilled him to the bone. "Play it again," he ordered, his voice steady despite the growing knot in his stomach. The communications officer nodded, tapping her console. A burst of static filled the room, followed by a desperate voice. "Under attack. Unknown vessels. Weapons unlike anything. Need immediate." The message dissolved into garbled noise before cutting off completely. "That's all we have, sir," the officer said. "We've tried to re-establish contact, but something's blocking all signals to the outpost." Reed nodded grimly. "Call the senior faculty. Emergency meeting in 10 minutes. Elsewhere in the station, Alex Turner hunched over his modified communications device in his dormitory. The tall, lanky student, with dark hair falling over bright eyes, had built the receiver himself, against Academy regulations. At 19, he was one of the Academy's most promising students, brilliant but often at odds with authority. His device had picked up something the Academy's filters had missed, a secondary transmission hidden beneath the distress call. As he worked to clean up the signal, his roommate Thomas peeked over his shoulder. "You'll get expelled if they catch you with that," Thomas warned, his stocky frame casting a shadow over Alex's work. "Only if they catch me," Alex replied without looking up. "Besides, this is important. Listen." He adjusted a dial, and a clear voice emerged through the static. "They're coming for the key. Prepare for full-scale invasion." Thomas's eyes widened. "What key? What invasion?" Alex shook his head. "I don't know, but we need to." The Academy-wide announcement system cut him off. All students returned to dormitories immediately. "This is not a drill. Faculty report to Command Center." In the faculty wing, Commander Kira Novak was already strapping on her sidearm. The former military officer had been training Academy students in defensive tactics for 5 years, but she had always hoped they would never need to use those skills for real. "Defensive systems detect multiple vessels approaching," announced the Academy's AI system through her personal communicator. "Estimated time to arrival, 43 minutes. The command center filled quickly with concerned faculty members. Professor Jack Ellis, head of engineering, arrived still wearing his lab coat. Professor Amy Wong from Xenobiology entered with data tablets under both arms. A dozen others filed in, faces grim. "We've received a distress call from Outpost Epsilon," Reed began without preamble, "and our sensors have detected an unidentified fleet on an intercept course with Sunspire." "Military vessels?" Professor Ellis asked. "Unknown," Reed replied. "But they're not responding to hails, and they're approaching at attack velocity." Commander Novak stepped forward. "Sir, we need to activate defensive protocols immediately and decide. Do we evacuate or prepare to defend the station?" A heavy silence fell over the room. "The evacuation ships would be vulnerable during launch," Professor Wong pointed out. Reed's communicator chimed. The message was simple but changed everything. "Hostile forces have increased speed. New estimated arrival, 15 minutes. No time for evacuation," Reed decided. "Commander Novak, prepare our defenses. Ellis, I need maximum power to shields. Everyone else, secure your departments and students." As the faculty dispersed to their urgent tasks, Reed looked out the viewport at the stars. For 15 years, Sunspire Academy had been the pride of human space education. Today, it would become a battlefield. The fight for survival had begun. Commander Kira Novak moved through the training hall with purpose, her boots making sharp sounds against the metal floor. Around her, 30 students stood in formation, faces tight with fear but eyes determined. "This is not a simulation," she said, her voice carrying to every corner of the room. "Those ships are hostile, and we need to be ready. Each of you has trained for emergency scenarios. Now it's time to use that training." She pointed to a tall student with a serious expression. "Mike, take blue team and secure the North Quadrant access points." She turned to a freckled girl with her hair pulled back. "Ellie, red team covers the residential sectors." The students moved with surprising efficiency, collecting defensive gear from wall lockers. Some grabbed energy shields, others took non-lethal stun weapons, the only armament students were permitted to handle. Meanwhile, in the engineering lab, Professor Jack Ellis wiped sweat from his forehead as he rerouted power systems. 3 of his top students worked alongside him, fingers flying across control panels. "The main shield can only operate at 70% capacity," said Lynn, a quiet but brilliant engineering student. "The north section took damage during last month's meteor shower, and repairs weren't complete." Ellis nodded grimly. "Then we'll have to compensate. Jake, redirect auxiliary power from the greenhouse systems. Danny, help me modify the shield frequency. If they try to break through at a specific point, we can at least make it harder for them." The lab rumbled as something impacted the station's outer defenses. The first probing attack. "They're testing us," Ellis muttered. In the communications center, technicians worked frantically to break through the jamming field that had enveloped the station. One threw her headset down in frustration. "It's no use. Every frequency is blocked. We can't get a distress call out." Director Reed placed a steadying hand on her shoulder. "Keep trying. Earth needs to know what's happening here." Across the station, Alex and Thomas crawled through maintenance tunnels, following the wiring to the central computer core. "This is definitely against regulations," Thomas whispered, glancing nervously over his shoulder. Alex continued forward without slowing. "The entire station is about to be invaded. I think rule breaking is the least of our concerns." "What are we even looking for?" Alex stopped at a junction and pulled out his tablet. "Something doesn't add up. Those ships appeared too suddenly. Our long-range sensors should have detected them hours ago. Maybe they have stealth technology. Or maybe," Alex said, eyes narrowing, "someone disabled our early warning system." The tablet showed a diagnostic of the sensor array. Alex pointed to irregularities in the code. "See this. These aren't random failures. Someone deliberately created a blind spot in our detection grid." Thomas's face paled. "You mean someone inside the academy helped them?" Before Alex could answer, a message blared over the emergency system. "All personnel. Enemy forces have breached outer defenses. Scout ships have docked at Maintenance Airlock 6. "That's 2 levels below us," Thomas said, voice cracking. In the director's office, Reed accessed a hidden panel behind his desk. He placed his palm on the scanner, then leaned forward for a retinal scan. A section of walls slid away, revealing a small chamber containing a single data crystal glowing with blue light. "Sir," his assistant said from the doorway, "Commander Novik reports the first invaders have entered the station." Reed nodded without turning. "Tell her to hold them as long as possible." He carefully removed the crystal and placed it in a secure container. "And find me Professor Ward. He needs to help secure the vault." Out in space, more ships appeared around the station. Sleek, predatory vessels with weapons that pulsed with strange energy. The largest ship positioned itself directly above the Academy's central dome. Inside that ship, a figure watched tactical displays with cold calculation. Sunspire Academy would fall. The key would be theirs, and the human resistance would never even begin. The first explosion rocked the entire station. Maintenance Airlock 6 blew inward with a thunderous roar, metal panels twisting like paper. Emergency lights flashed as smoke billowed through the corridor. From the swirling haze emerged figures in sleek armor. Their helmets had no visible eye slits, just smooth, reflective surfaces that mirrored the chaos around them. Each carried weapons that hummed with pulsing blue energy. Two security officers positioned behind barricades opened fire. Their standard-issue blasters struck one invader directly in the chest, but the energy dispersed harmlessly across the armor. "Fall back," shouted the senior officer, but it was too late. The invaders raised their weapons. There was no muzzle flash, no projectile, just a wave of energy that rippled through the air. Both officers dropped instantly, their bodies convulsing before going still. In the security monitoring room, Director Reed watched the feed with horror. "We've lost Section 7B," reported a technician, her voice shaking. "The intruders are advancing toward the central hub." Reed pressed the station-wide comm button. "This is Director Reed. All security teams implement Protocol Delta. All students and non-essential personnel evacuate to emergency shelters immediately." Across the station, panic spread. Students rushed through corridors toward designated safe zones. Faculty members tried to maintain order, but fear was contagious. In the central computer core, Alex and Thomas watched multiple security feeds on Alex's tablet. The invaders moved with military precision, splitting into smaller teams that headed toward specific locations. "They know exactly where they're going," Alex whispered. "Look, they're not randomly searching. They have a map." Thomas pointed to one group heading toward the upper levels. "That team is moving toward the vault section." Alex zoomed in on the invaders' armor. Their tech, it looks almost familiar. He enhanced the image further, focusing on components attached to the weapons. "Wait, those circuitry patterns, they're similar to our advanced propulsion designs." "How is that possible?" "I don't know, but we need to warn." The tablet screen flickered, then went dark. All around them, lights dimmed as the station's power fluctuated. "Attention all personnel," came a synthetic voice over the speakers. It wasn't the familiar tones of the Academy's AI system, Athena. This voice was colder, distorted. "The station's central systems are now under our control. Resistance is futile and will result in unnecessary casualties." Throughout the Academy, screens activated simultaneously, displaying the same message: "Surrender the KE." In the engineering section, Professor Ellis and his students worked frantically to isolate critical systems. "They're attempting to access Athena's core programming," Lynn reported, fingers flying over her keyboard. "I'm trying to establish a firewall, but they're using access codes." Ellis looked up sharply. "That's impossible. Those codes are only available to senior faculty." A terrible realization dawned on him, just as the door to the engineering lab slid open. Professor Devon Ward stood there, flanked by two armored invaders. "Jack," Ward said with a sad smile, "always the faithful servant of a dying system." "Devon, what have you done?" Ellis stepped protectively in front of his students. "What was necessary?" Ward replied. "The key was never meant to be hidden. It's time for humanity to face its true destiny." In the command center, Commander Novak received reports of breaches from all sectors. She turned to Director Reed, who had just arrived, breathing heavily. "Sir, we can't hold them. Whatever tech they're using, it's too advanced." Reed's face was grim as he inserted a small data card into the central console. "Then we implement the Sunspire protocol." "Sir," Novak's eyes widened, "but that's never been tested. The station might not survive. If they get the key, none of us will survive what comes next." Reed entered his authorization code. "Alert all loyal personnel. The fight for Sunspire Academy has truly begun." Deep within the station's core, ancient systems began to hum with power, awakening for the first time since the Academy's construction. The Academy's central display map showed the grim reality in stark colors. Red zones marked areas completely overrun by invaders. Yellow indicated contested sections where fighting continued. The shrinking green areas represented the few secure regions still under Academy control. Commander Novak studied the display with narrowed eyes. "We've lost the east wing and lower levels. The vault is still secure, but they're getting closer." "How many students are unaccounted for?" Director Reed asked, wincing as he pressed a bandage to his arm, where a stray energy blast had caught him. 17. A junior officer reported. Most are likely trapped in yellow zones. Reed nodded gravely. Our priority is protecting those students and securing the vault. We divide our forces. In the residential section, Alex led a group of 8 younger students through narrow maintenance passages. Their faces were streaked with dust and fear as they crawled through spaces never meant for human transit. "Are we going to die?" whispered a girl no older than 15, her voice barely audible. Alex turned back, meeting her gaze directly. "No, we're going to survive this. The Academy has secrets even the invaders don't know about." "How do you know where we're going?" asked another student. Alex managed a small smile. "Let's just say I've spent a lot of time exploring places I shouldn't." They emerged into a small storage area. Alex pulled out his modified tablet, now running on its own power source. According to the schematics, there's an emergency shelter 2 junctions ahead. It was built into the original station design, but never listed in student briefings. "Why?" Thomas asked. "Because it connects directly to the vault level," Alex replied. The Academy has always been more than just a school. Meanwhile, Professor Ellis found himself imprisoned in his own lab, guarded by a single armored invader. Through the glass walls, he could see Professor Ward working with other invaders, interfacing their technology with Academy systems. Ellis watched with growing horror as Ward accessed restricted files, revealing schematics Ellis had never seen before. "It was always here," Ward said, noticing Ellis's stare. "Right under our noses. The greatest weapon ever created, hidden inside a school." "What are you talking about?" Ellis demanded. Ward approached the glass. "The key isn't just an artifact, Jack. It's a control mechanism for something much larger. The founders built this station around it, disguised as an academy to keep it hidden." He leaned closer. "They're not invaders. They're its rightful owners, coming to reclaim what was stolen." In the training facility, Commander Novak had established a makeshift command center. 30 students with combat training formed a protective perimeter, while medical staff treated injuries. "We need to reach the director," Novak told her second-in-command. "The communications blackout is working against us." "Mom." A security officer rushed in. "We've detected unusual energy readings from the central core. The Sunspire protocol is changing the station's internal configuration." "What does that mean?" asked the second-in-command. Novak's expression was grim. "It means the Academy is revealing its true purpose." Throughout the station, hidden panels slid open in walls that had seemed solid for decades. Weapon systems emerged from concealed compartments. Corridors shifted, revealing new paths and sealing others. In the director's office, Reed accessed a hidden terminal. "Computer, identify invading force." The screen displayed data scrolling too fast to read before settling on an image, a symbol of a shattered star. "Faction identified. Nexus Reclamation Front. Splinter group of the Galactic Coalition. Classified as extremist." Reed's face hardened. "So Ward betrayed us to fanatics." He tapped a final command. "Initiate Phase 2 of the Sunspire protocol." Deep below, in a chamber few knew existed, ancient machinery thrummed to life. The Academy was awakening, transforming from a place of learning into the fortress it was always designed to be. And somewhere in the darkness between stars, something vast and ancient began to stir in response. "We need to get to the archives," Alex whispered as he and Thomas huddled in the emergency shelter with the younger students. "That's where we'll find answers about this key everyone's fighting over." Thomas looked at him like he'd lost his mind. "The archives. That's in the restricted section. 3 levels up and crawling with those armored invaders. Exactly why they won't expect anyone to go there," Alex replied, his eyes bright with determination. "Look, the station is changing. Haven't you noticed? Hidden passages opening, systems activating that weren't there before." The walls around them hummed with energy, as if to confirm his words. The Academy was transforming, becoming something else entirely. Alex turned to the group of frightened students. I need you all to stay here. This shelter has emergency supplies and secure communications. Once it's safe, Commander Novik's teams will find you. A small boy with wide eyes spoke up. You're leaving us. We're going to find out how to stop this, Alex assured him. Thomas and I have the best chance of getting through undetected. After ensuring the younger students were secure, Alex and Thomas slipped back into the maintenance tunnels. They navigated by the light of Alex's tablet, following a path that shouldn't have existed according to the official station schematics. How did you get these maps? Thomas asked as they climbed through a narrow vertical shaft. Alex grunted with effort. Remember last semester when I got caught hacking the grading system? I wasn't after grades. I found fragments of these plans buried in the oldest parts of the Academy's data core. They emerged into a dimly lit corridor where emergency lights cast red shadows. The archive's entrance loomed ahead, a massive door with the Academy insignia. It's locked down, Thomas whispered. We'll never get through that. Alex approached a seemingly ordinary wall panel and pressed his hand against it in a specific pattern. The panel slid aside, revealing a maintenance access tunnel. The original builders left back doors everywhere, he explained, almost like they expected this day to come. Inside the archives, rows of data terminals and physical records stretched into the darkness. Most of the information was stored digitally, but the most important records were kept on specialized crystals that couldn't be hacked or remotely accessed. Alex moved directly to a section marked Founding Documents and began searching through crystal storage units. Here, he said finally, holding up a small blue crystal that pulsed with inner light. This is the original charter. He inserted it into a standalone reader not connected to the main system. The screen flickered to life, displaying text and diagrams that made both boys gasp. The Academy was never just a school, Alex whispered. It was built as a disguise, a cover for its real purpose. He pointed to a diagram. Look at this. The entire station is actually a control center for an ancient defense system. Thomas leaned closer. The Sunspire network. What's that? A series of satellites positioned throughout this sector of space. Alex read. Created by. This can't be right. Created by a coalition of species thousands of years ago to defend against something called the void currents. And the key. It's the activation mechanism. Alex scrolled through more data. Without it, the network stays dormant. With it, his voice trailed off as the implications became clear. Meanwhile, in a corridor near the central hub, Director Reed fell to his knees as an energy blast caught him squarely in the chest. He had been leading a group of students to safety when invaders ambushed them. Go, he shouted to the security officers. Get the students to the safe zone. As the others retreated, Reed pulled himself into a doorway, blood seeping through his uniform. He clutched a small container holding the key. With trembling fingers, he activated his communicator for a final message. Commander Novak, he gasped. The key must reach the central core. Everything depends on it. As his vision darkened, Reed saw the station walls around him pulse with light, as if the Academy itself were coming alive. Preparing for the battle it was always meant to fight. Commander Novik's face hardened as Director Reed's final message ended. She clutched the small container he had managed to transfer to her team before his death, feeling the weight of responsibility it carried. Ma'am, what are your orders? Asked her second-in-command. Novik looked around at the faces of students and faculty who had gathered in their makeshift command center. Fear mixed with determination in their eyes. We take back our academy, she said firmly, and we finish what Director Reed started. She unfolded a tactical display showing the station's layout. The invaders control the central hub, but they don't understand what's happening to the station. We use that confusion against them. Across the station, the transformation continued. Walls reconfigured, revealing hidden weapon caches. Defense turrets emerged from ceilings. The academy was shedding its peaceful disguise. 3 teams. Novik ordered. Team 1 creates a diversion at the East Junction. Team 2 secures a path to the central core. Team 3. She paused, looking at the most capable students. Team 3 comes with me to retake the hub. In the archives, Alex and Thomas pored over the ancient records. The invaders aren't just after the key, Alex said, pointing to a diagram. They want to control the entire network for themselves. According to this, whoever commands the Sunspire network controls the defenses for 12 star systems. But why now? Thomas wondered. The academy has been here for 15 years. Alex scrolled to another section. Because of this, he pointed to a star chart showing a dark mass moving through space. The void currents, whatever they are, return in cycles, and according to these calculations, they're due to return soon. A loud explosion rocked the archives, sending dust falling from the ceiling. That's our cue, Alex said, downloading critical data to his tablet. Commander Novak is making her move. We need to make ours. Outside in the corridors, chaos erupted as Academy forces launched their coordinated attack. Hidden defense systems activated under Novak's access codes, trapping invaders in corridors that suddenly sealed themselves. Team 1 created their diversion with spectacular effect, detonating charges that weren't designed to kill but to confuse and disorient. Emergency systems sprayed mist that blocked the invaders' sensors. Team 2 fought their way through to secure the path to the central core, using the station's transformation to their advantage. Where invaders expected walls, they found open spaces. Where they expected doors, they found solid barriers. Meanwhile, above the station, a small group of elite students led by Mike and Ellie used maintenance pods to approach the invaders' command ship. Their mission was crucial: disable the jamming field preventing distress calls to Earth. We've got one shot at this, Mike told his team as they maneuvered toward the ship's communications array. Plant the disruptors exactly as Professor Ellis designed them. Inside the ship, they encountered technology both alien and strangely familiar. The corridors were lined with equipment that seemed partially human in design. Look at these components, Ellie whispered. They're Academy prototypes, but modified, advanced beyond what we've achieved. A sudden alarm blared through the ship. Their presence had been detected. Complete the mission, Mike ordered as armed figures approached. Get that jamming field down. Back on the station, Commander Novik led Team 3 through a service tunnel that opened directly into the rear of the central hub. The invaders had fortified the main entrances, but never expected an attack from within their secure zone. The battle was swift and brutal. Academy security forces, augmented by the station's newly revealed defense systems, caught the invaders in a perfect crossfire. At the hub's center, Novik came face to face with Professor Ward. "You're too late," he said, backing toward the main console. "The command ship has already begun the extraction protocol. The key will be theirs." "You betrayed everything the Academy stands for," Novik said, raising her weapon. "Why?" Ward's face showed a complex mix of fear and conviction. "Because humanity isn't ready for what's coming. The void currents will consume everything unless properly controlled. The front has the knowledge to harness that power. Or they'll destroy us all trying," Novik replied, advancing toward him. "And we won't let that happen." Alex and Thomas raced through the transforming corridors of Sunspire Academy, clutching the vital information they had discovered in the archives. Behind them, the sounds of battle echoed. Energy weapons discharging, shouts of command, the deep rumble of the station reconfiguring itself. "We need to reach the core before Ward does," Alex panted as they slid around a corner. "If what we learned is true, the key doesn't just activate the defense network, it can weaponize it." They skidded to a halt as 3 armored invaders appeared ahead. There was nowhere to hide in the narrow passage. "End of the line, students," one invader said, raising a weapon. Suddenly, the wall beside the invaders slid open. A defense turret emerged and fired precise stun pulses. All three attackers dropped before they could react. "The station is protecting us," Thomas whispered in awe. "Not the station," Alex replied. "Athena." The AI wasn't compromised. She was evolving. The central core of Sunspire Academy had transformed into something unrecognizable. What was once a simple monitoring station now revealed its true nature, a massive chamber with technology far beyond current human capabilities. At its center stood a pedestal glowing with soft blue light. Commander Novak arrived with her team just as Professor Ward reached the pedestal. He held the key container he had stolen during the chaos. "Don't do this, Devon," Novak warned, her weapon trained on him. "You don't understand what you're unleashing." Ward's hands trembled as he opened the container. "I understand more than you know. The void currents aren't just some distant threat. They're already here, at the edge of our system. Without proper guidance, the network will destroy everything." "He's lying," Alex called out as he and Thomas entered from another doorway. "We found the truth in the archives. The network doesn't destroy. It shields. But the front wants to reverse its function, turn it into a weapon they can control." Ward's face contorted with rage. "Foolish children. You know nothing of the powers at play." He lunged toward the pedestal with the key. 3 shots rang out. Ward stumbled, the key flying from his hand. It arced through the air in agonizing slow motion. Alex dove forward, sliding across the floor. His fingers closed around the small crystal device just before it could shatter against the ground. Above the station, Mike and Ellie's team had succeeded. The jamming field collapsed, and a flood of data transmitted to Earth. The truth about Sunspire Academy, the invaders, and the ancient network that had protected humanity without their knowledge. On the command ship, the front's leader received the devastating news. "The jamming field is down. Earth defense forces have been alerted." In the core chamber, Alex stood shakily and approached the pedestal. "Are you sure about this?" Novak asked quietly. Alex nodded. The archives were clear. "This is what Sunspire was built for. This is why the best young minds were brought here, to be ready for this moment." He placed the key in the center of the pedestal. It fit perfectly, as if returning home after a long absence. The entire station hummed with power. Light flowed from the pedestal, running along channels in the floor and walls that had been hidden for years. Outside, students and faculty watched in amazement as the academy's exterior shifted, sections rotating and extending. In space surrounding the station, ancient satellites long dormant flickered to life. They formed a network spanning across the star system, creating a protective grid. The invaders' ships found themselves trapped as the network established a containment field. Their weapon systems went offline, rendering them harmless. In the core chamber, a holographic display appeared above the pedestal, showing the full extent of the network. Dozens of worlds, all connected, all protected. "It's beautiful," Thomas whispered. Professor Ward, wounded but alive, looked up at the display with tears in his eyes. "I was wrong," he admitted. "They lied to me. This isn't a weapon. It's a shield." Commander Novak received confirmation that Earth Defense Forces were on their way. "The Academy is secure," she announced, "but nothing will ever be the same." Alex gazed at the glowing network display. The Sunspire Academy had revealed its true purpose, not just to educate, but to prepare humanity for its place among the stars. And when the void currents arrived, they would be ready. The fight for survival had only just begun, but for the first time since the attack, hope illuminated their path forward.